Hi, I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Cindy.
And we're here with another Feeding Frenzy for the 4 Spiritual Laws of Prosperity by Edwene Gaines.
A simple
guide to unlimited abundance.
Very good. Yay. We are still on chapter 2.
We are on chapter 2. We're still discussing tithing.
And we talk about today about her father being a very rich father. About her having a very rich father. What do you think about that little story?
I thought that was a really good story. And
what did you tell me when we were reading that?
I told you, I really felt like I'm moving into that space where I've got that much trust under my belt now, having tithed religiously, so to speak, for a while, and seeing that come back to me. I've got enough faith that I really feel like I'm moving into that. I can picture that. I can rely on that I have a very, very rich father. And it's not just that thought, but knowing that God's got my back, that God's got this, no matter what.
Yeah.
So I feel like I have that safety net. I also told you that took a lot of guts for her to jump, knowing she was not going to have a safety net. But then I realized after I said that, she knew she did.
Yeah.
It just wasn't a
safety
net given by some other individual.
Could you spend your Plan B money? And
I've spent my Plan B money many times. As I said, I think it was yesterday when I shared my story. I spent all of it then.
Yeah.
And I was moving out with 2 small children. I mean, I made the conscious decision to trust fully. And I continue to have to do that, but I've spent Plan B quite often, knowing, now it's wisely, but knowing God's got this, God's got my back, it's coming. I know when I invest in this that it's coming back.
I was listening to Abraham Hicks the other day, and somebody asked her a question. I can't remember the exact question, but it was basically, why do people seem to hit rock bottom before they start up again? And especially financially, why do so many people tend to lose everything and then they start making it? And her answer was that when we're on that downward spiral, it's hard to get back up because we're so focused on the lack and we're so focused on the holding on to it and hanging on to it that it's hard to get that upward momentum of making more, earning more, or trusting more, So it made a lot of sense to me that, as long as things are going downhill, it's really hard to turn things around and put it back the other way. And burning Plan B, man, that's a hard thing to do.
Well, and what you were talking about just
but it makes sense.
Ago, yeah, it makes total sense. When you're talking about that downward spiral, it's hard to take a step up when you're still sliding.
Yeah.
It is very hard. It's not impossible, but it is very hard until you stop the slide to take that step up. So I understand.
So I have another question for you.
Yeah.
Since we started studying this, which we're only on chapter 2, but we spent several days on it, have you noticed any changes in anything in you?
Oh, well, yeah, obviously. Even though I know this material and feel like I know it well, I still find that I'm growing in it and with it all the time because I'm constantly faced with another time to have to prove it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm constantly having to lean on that faith, knowing God's there, God's got this.
Right.
Even when I prepare to write the emails that go out, I have to sit in thought and think about, all right, what is Spirit telling me today? What is I'm trying to share today? And there's trust in that.
Right.
So it's not just in financial, it's in every aspect. I have to start with, okay, Spirit, you're on.
Right.
And that is not calling forth God to work in my life. That's moving me out of the way to allow it to come through.
Yeah. When we shared our stories the other day, it reminded me of how passionate I was at that point, how much I wanted that, and how everything fell into place. But only after I made the hard decisions, this is what I want. and I'm going
This
to
is
go
what
for
I'm
it
gonna
no
do.
matter what.
Yeah.
And I think since then I've questioned and questioned, God, why isn't the money here? Why don't I have what I want? I want it, I want it, I want it. But I don't have that fire, that burning desire to get what I want no matter what. And I think that's a big key to the
It
goal
is.
setting and the being on purpose.
It
Is
is.
you got to get to that point where it's no matter what, I
Yeah.
want this. You
Yeah.
know? And I don't
Did
have
you get to that
passion.
point with time? Or was it just an allowing?
It had nothing to do with the money. I wanted to be home. I wanted to be home with my kids, period. And that was all that mattered. Now, money was the way I was going to make that happen because I had to get the bills paid. Had to get the bills or the debt paid off. And then my husband's salary was enough to keep me home if I could get the debt paid off. So that was my goal.
But I'm talking about with
paid off.
tithing. Did you get that determined with tithing?
No, because
Or was it just a matter of allowing?
I did not understand the principles of tithing back when I was tithing faithfully. So no, I was never that passionate about it. Once I started, it was just an automatic thing I did. It wasn't like anything I consciously thought about, really.
So it was just kind of an unconscious, this is a habit kind of thing.
It
of
was
just doing
sort of
it.
like you mentioned. It was like, okay, this is our dues to go to church. This is what we owe
Yeah.
every week, and to look good and to feel good.
Yeah.
And to just it was just a matter of habit after a while. And we tried. I will say we made a conscious effort to give off the top of gross, and we gave 11% instead of 10 because we wanted to give 10% of what we wanted to make. So, and that worked. I mean, it really worked because we kept getting more money as long as we were doing that. So, no, I did not make it get that passionate about it, but I was passionate about the other things, And when the few times in my life when I've been so passionate, things just start falling into place.
But I think that's when we find that major change, when we get the passion behind it.
Right. And it wasn't to make the money. It was to do something, and the passion for me was to be able to stay home. So it wasn't about how much money can I make, although that was part of it. That wasn't the passion was for. And I think
That wasn't the drive, was it?
Right. And so I think a lot of the programs I've seen where they say, okay, set a goal of how much money you want to make. Well, I don't think that should be the goal. That is part of the goal.
Yes.
But the goal should be, what do I want to do, be, or have?
There you go.
What feelings do I want to get?
Yeah.
And when we set them from that, I wanted to be home with my kid. That took money to do that. And so money became a part of that goal. But it wasn't the goal. It wasn't, I want to make this much money. You got to have a why behind it.
Yeah.
And I had a big why. And when we get a big why, then we become more successful at making things happen that fit into this law. So, now we have questions.
Okay.
Just want to move into those. So, what is a tithe?
A tithe, to me, is 10% of all of the money that I receive, and it comes from the top of it, meaning it's what I give out first from what I receive.
Right. So it's 10%. To tithe is to return 10% of all we receive to a person, place, or institution from which we have received spiritual food. So what is spiritual food?
Spiritual food is something that someone says or does or presents to me that causes me to remember who I am or where I came from or inspires me to get there.
Right.
That's what spiritual food is.
Says it reminds us of the truth. Okay, what is the purpose of a tithe?
The purpose of a tithe is for me to keep me in the circulation. We're always giving and receiving, and if I'm not tithing and acknowledging God in it, then I'm out of alignment and not in the flow anymore. So it keeps me in the flow of the giving and receiving.
She says it's to acknowledge that God is the source of our good, that we are aware and grateful for the good in our lives.
Yeah.
What is the tithing promise?
What do you mean, what is a tithing
She says
promise?
if we tithe, we prove God in our lives, and the windows of heaven will open up for us.
Yeah.
So she's talking about the promise in the Bible
Oh, okay.
from Malachi. God doesn't need any money. Why should I tithe?
For me, it's not giving God money. It's acknowledging the action of God in whatever that is, in that spiritual food. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's acknowledging that it came from God in that situation. And like I said, it keeps me in the flow.
Right. When we tithe, we give back to the universe, and when the universe gives back to us and more, we learn that we cannot outgive God. Why 10%?
I don't know why 10%.
She's
Besides the
I've
fact
heard
that
her
it's an
say-
easy money, it's an easy way to figure things
Exactly.
out. I'm glad it's not 25%. I don't
Or 9.
know, except that maybe, it's really not that difficult to live on 90% of what you're bringing in. And I don't know why 10%, other than that's what was suggested a long time ago, and
She
we
says
all feel comfortable with that.
The
maybe.
first recorded tithe in the Bible is discussed in Genesis 14 when Abraham took his tithe to the spiritual teacher Melchizedek. And we're not told why it was 10%, only that it was.
Right. I don't know the exact why, but
She
I know
says
that was
her
the
personal
suggested
belief is that God knew that some of us were not going to be very good at math.
Well, okay, I can buy into that. Absolutely. I agree with that, too. I'm not real great with math. So.
What if you receive spiritual food from several places?
I go with what I am led to do in the moment. Sometimes I am led to split my tithe, and other times I am led to give to one this time, and then when I receive more, I give then. Do you know what I'm saying? So I go with whatever I'm being led to do in the moment. I don't think it's wrong to split.
No, not at all. I don't either.
Because I think I get
I
fed
do
from
the same.
different places sometimes. So.
Right, and I usually weigh it. I've got this much,
And where does it go?
Yeah.
That's what I ask. Where does it go?
and usually, when we've
Where
done
have
that
I been
together, it's like we both get the same
isn't
number.
that amazing?
Yeah.
And we get the same number, and we usually get the same person or people or
Right.
the same source,
Right.
and that's cool to me.
What if those I tied to don't really need it?
It doesn't matter because I'm not giving to a need.
Right,
I'm giving where I got, where I received.
right,
So it doesn't have anything to do with whether they need it or
right.
not.
As a matter of fact, if we give to a need, we create more need.
I believe that. I believe
So
that.
we don't give because people need it, And I have to remind myself when I have a tithe to give, I think, okay, where does this go? And a lot of times I catch myself saying, oh, so-and-so could use this money. And I can't do that. I can't do
Well,
that.
but
Unless
that's not
they
why
fed
we're
me.
giving it.
Right, exactly. It's not to a need.
Now-
I can give to a need, but it
Yes.
should be over and above
Right,
my 10%.
it's not a tithe.
Right.
Giving to someone who needs a hand up or a handout or whatever doesn't count as the tithe.
Right.
I do that in addition too.